in the Senate. My next guest says that might not happen at all, that the Senate could, in fact, approve the very measure the House is taking up this week. Republican Congressman Steve King of Iowa joins me. That raised some eyebrows, Congressman, that it isn't dead after it leaves the House. Explain.
Well, when I look back on this, when I introduced the legislation to repeal Obamacare, and I joined with Michelle Bachmann and others on that 10 months ago, some said it was just a legislative tantrum, that it was symbolic, and it would go nowhere in the House. Midsummer, I introduced a discharge petition that's brought 173 signatures with Nancy Pelosi as Speaker, and the critics began to get a little more silent. That was part of the tools that won this majority in the House of Representatives. We are here now with a standalone, clear, full repeal that reflects the strategy that a couple of us put together 10 months ago. And it plays out on the time frame. So let's just say this, that it will pass the House this week. I'm confident that it will. When it goes over to Harry Reid in the Senate, it becomes a great big hot potato in his lap. And then he has to figure out what to do with it, with the pressure from the public building constantly over there.
All right, well, let's explore the pressure a little bit. The House, I think you're right, the numbers favor, and certainly with the substantial majority your party enjoys the House. I think that's a slam dunk. All right. The Senate, where the Democrats hold the edge, it's fairly safe to say most, if not all, of the 47 Republicans there vote for this measure. Then all you need to pick off are 3 or 4 Democrats, relatively easier to do in light of folks like Senator Clever Haskell of Maryland saying, I want to revisit the coverage option. Some of those very vulnerable to 2012 battles, 23 Democrats, I believe. So the math does begin to change, doesn't it?
I think it does. I predicted about 10 days ago that if we can see a vote on repeal in the Senate, that I believe it passes the Senate. And it passes because of the number that you gave, 23 Democrats up for re-election in the Senate. And some of them now are positioning themselves to have a bit of a more nuanced position than they had last year when this passed. So I think the pressure builds, and they understand what happened in the House with the dramatic shift in the majority. They understand that can't happen in the Senate.
You're right, Congressman, you're right. They understand all that. But let's be truthful here. Even if you got this passed in the Senate, it certainly wouldn't be by a veto-proof margin, because the president would never, accept this. He'll veto it. It goes back to these guys, and he's got the thing safe. But you're saying a message and a statement is sent, right?
And it must be. I don't think anybody can imagine a strategy that would finally repeal Obamacare without the House voting to repeal Obamacare as the initial shot across the bow here across the country. But we also know, and part of the strategy from the beginning has been, that a majority in the House now can shut off funding that's used to implement or enforce Obamacare. And we can do so in every appropriations bill all the way through this year and next if need be. And I believe that lays the foundation so that, I said Obamacare is a malignant tumor and it threatens to metastasize if we don't pull it out by the roots. And we need to do that, but the next president will finally sign the repeal. And I believe the next president of the United States will run on that platform of repealing Obamacare, among other things.
Well, a lot of folks thought you were crazy when you first came up with this idea, just an outright vote on the repeal. It's not so crazy anymore. Congressman, thank you very much.
Feels good this